So, you know, you spoke that obviously there's a lot of girls that are joining. Do you have like a rough, you know, I know it's not 50-50, but you know, if you could put a number on it, how many girls do you think you have in the
Yeah,
council?
I would. Someone's going to correct me in a stat, right? They're going to see the podcast and say that was wrong. But I'm going to say we're knocking on 20% of our membership
That's
now
awesome.
is female.
Yeah.
And with that and the program, it's starting to get to the point now where you have almost every single Cub Scouting program has girls enrolled in it for us. And so you have communities where we started up about 24, 25 girl troops. So the Scouts BSA program, former Boy Scout program, is not co-ed.
Yeah.
They have girl troops, they have boy troops.
Right.
And so we have so many girls that are in the Cub Scout program, girls that are in Cub Scouts, that when they're graduating at Cub Scouts, there's not girl troops everywhere.
Sure.
So there's about 100 boy troops that exist throughout the council, our council, but you only get about 24, 26 girl troops. So there's still a lot of gaps.
Sure.
And so you have communities, you know, you think of Monroe County, it really doesn't matter where you're at, there's something pretty close. But as you start getting spread out through the Finger Lakes region,
that can be tough. Yeah.
It starts, especially Seneca County, some other spots. So there's still a lot of gaps. And so for girls that are in younger ages wanting to cross over, you know, not all those communities have got critical mass where they've got a large enough group to help form those troops yet.
So how does it work? So it's two separate, like it's girl troops, boy troops. How does like Jamboree work and stuff?
Yeah, so,
do they all come together?
Yeah, so they do. They'll usually be in separate areas. So a girl troop and a boy troop usually won't share a campsite unless they're sponsored by the same organization. Okay. So like most of the units are sponsored by either service club or church.
I don't want to interrupt, but it does seem the ones that I'm familiar with, it's like the same location will have a girl troop and a boy troop because it's, you know, like I have, well, he isn't born yet, but like I have 2 daughters and I'm going to have a son here soon. So it'd be very hard to meet, you know, 2 different meeting nights or 2 different locations, whatever. So I think on a practicality, I don't know. I can't foresee the future, but I think eventually we got to build up to it. But I think eventually they'll go co-ed. I have no idea, but maybe it won't.
Huge debate, right? Really huge debate in the organization because, you know, a lot of people from a consumer standpoint we would just want the co-ed experience because convenience makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But a lot of people that don't sit back and say, well, wait a minute, what makes Scouts? Let's take Boy Scouting for a second. What makes Boy Scouting successful? And it's we take kids, we put them in an environment where we make them fail. Or, you know, you think of that very first camp out that went on, right? If you ever had an 11-year-old, you go to camp out and you say to the kids, okay, what do you want to cook for meals? We're going to do, I don't know, spaghetti. That'd be cool. Spaghetti for dinner, right? So you and as Scoutmaster, you just go ahead and look back, plan the menu. So you want spaghetti, homemade meatball sounds great. And so you make up this crazy menu as a bunch of 11-year-olds with no thought in mind about how to cook, prepare, clean. And then what happens?
Food safety. What's food safety?
Exactly. And then you get into the camp out and nobody wants to cook, nobody wants to clean. You know, dinner's a disaster. Nobody does dishes. You know, breakfast the next morning, the dishes from the night before still aren't done. And it's a total disaster in that first camp out. But from it, you learn responsibility and doing a duty roster and having separate roles and taking responsibility. And what we found out in venturing, even at 14, is when you get to a co-ed environment, what happens is that young man who's not really up much for initiative yet just kind of sits back and says, the young lady, you got it. You take care of it.
Sure. Yeah. And I followed the debate when they started, talking about having girls in general, which was silly because they've been adventuring and exploring for 100 years or 50 years, whatever it was. And every other country in the world, it's just Scouts, or almost every other country, I should say. But anyways, there was a small part of me, you know, like I'm an only child, so I didn't have older brothers or older sisters, right? And so I enjoyed when we went on a troop. You know, you're 11, you feel like you're in the army almost, which I know that's not the point, but that's kind of how you feel. You feel like you're part of a unit, you're in a patrol, and you're this, and not that girls ruin it, but like they have cooties and stuff, and they kind of ruin it. No, I'm just kidding. But when you're 11, that's how you feel, right? So I definitely could see that side of it where, you know, I had 20 older brothers, and there was a probably Lord of the Flies might not be the right.
Some use pretty well.
But there's, you know what I mean? There's something, you know, we lived from it, right? We weren't. Who was the one that they crushed with the rock? None of that happened to us, right? So we're good. But I'm as a dad, I've got, like I said, 2 daughters. I'm very glad that if they choose to, that they can become Eagle Scouts, that they can learn, you know, the best leadership development program I think that still exists, that's ever existed for youth. They can be a part of that too. So I think ultimately it was the right move. But
yeah, and that's one thing. It's interesting as you talk about World Scouting because it's really what does make the Boy Scouts of America different than the rest of the members of the World Scout Bureau.
Mm-hmm.
And leadership development really became a huge experience that existed in the Boy Scouts of America that didn't existed everywhere, but not to the same extent.
Mm-hmm.
And so and from an organizational standpoint, saying how do you keep that pure? How do you really make sure that you're focused on leadership development in young people? And so that's really where this debate comes in. So it'll be interesting to see what happens over the next 5 to 10 years. As kind of the consumer does want that co-ed experience for convenience.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how it evolves.
Mm-hmm.
For kids that go through the program, they're still, kids are even split on it. I've had kids, my own kids have gone through, and they're like, never. And they understand the difference and why. But
and I guess you almost leave it up to the unit too. I mean, if a unit wants to form as a co-ed unit, let them. And if a unit wants to stay just boys, I guess, and then there's a girl component too, or I don't know.
Probably going to sugar out. I'm going to guess probably similar to what most college campuses have figured out. That I have
Sure.
co-ed dorms, and I have an all-male dorm, and I have an all-female dorm.
Yeah.
And I let the participants pick where they want to be.
Yeah.
But
that makes sense.
We'll see how it evolves.